live.
All right, welcome back to World's Strongest Opinions, episode, what are we, 41?
41. It's a big deal.
You didn't put it up on the top
I know,
today.
I didn't. I was second guessing myself. I've been disorganized and my computer's been driving me crazy.
That's what you need to do, is just not put things there and then I get it right. But anyway, welcome back to World's Strongest Opinions, episode 41 with Nick Newcomer. We're talking about something else, but you're here to tell us about the importance of rotisserie chicken. We're going to get to that because I want to understand the importance of rotisserie chicken. But we're talking about supplements.
I'm here for all of it.
And we're talking about the quality of supplements and you know, the lack of regulation, and talking about cheap supplements and how they actually get cheap.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is using really low quality ingredients.
Mm-hmm. And it's I don't know that I always want to use it as a metric, but like when I first started getting into supplements, somebody told me, watch the scoop size. And I know that doesn't bear saying for every type of supplement, but like, what a scoop of pre-workout should look like if you're just getting, maybe an efficacious dose of caffeine, arginine, creatine, maybe some other fancy things, maybe a little niacin. Like, you have a general idea of what that should look like,
Yeah.
And so, if you pull a scoop out and it's like a protein-sized scoop, it may raise questions. It should.
I don't know. There's no standard. I mean, we like to talk about standards on this show. There's really not any standards in the supplement industry either. Like we were talking just before, the FDA and USDA really do not regulate them. I mean, there's some minor regulation, I think, in supplement, because they can't use red rice yeast, whatever the hell that stuff that has statinoids in it. So they're actually regulated by the FDA. They can't have it over a certain amount, basically any useful amount of statinoids in that product, because obviously then it's going to affect the pharmaceutical companies who, have a monopoly on, selling you bullshit to control your cholesterol that does nothing to reduce your risk of heart disease. But that's a whole other topic, right? But yeah, so there is no standards and there's very, very little regulation. And a lot of them have I see that on pre-workout all the time. It's like proprietary blend. Okay, what the fuck am I taking?
Yeah.
I've been up for 12 hours. I haven't come down. My heart's beating still.
It's a weird concept because it's like, I don't know if you remember the old Disney film, The Jungle Book. If you remember when the snake kind of hovers down, he starts singing "Trust in Me." It's very much what a lot of supplement companies do these days. And I mean, it's really up to the end user of, does it make you feel better or feel the way you think it should or not? And does that justify the cost?
Right.
Because how many people swear by BCAAs when in all reality you should be getting most of that through your diet, if not all of it?
You should be getting double it. I actually calculated how many BCAAs I was getting for my daily diet, and it's actually double what the recommended daily dose is for an athlete. So you're like, yeah, you're right. BCAAs are a waste of money.
But they taste nice.
Nah. But leave them in your shaker for overnight. You'll think twice about the taste and the smell. They go bad so fast and they're so rank and bleh.
I have fear of opening my shakers if I know I've forgotten it for more than a day. I had a Hyundai Accent when I was living in New York, and I would throw my gym stuff in the trunk, including the shakers, and I didn't have a gym bag back then. And when I went to sell that car, I found this graveyard of shakers, and I was looking at them and I was like, man, I'm running low on shakers. I could really use a shaker. I wonder if I could clean these out. And they had ballooned so much from everything inside of them, like the gas expansion. I was like, these are dangerous, physically dangerous. So,
and the fumes they're giving off will probably kill you too. So,
yeah, we did actually. this is a related point. There's a meme going around recently that was like, if your farts don't reek, your protein intake is weak. And it's like, no, that usually indicates that you're probably lactose intolerant and using cheap protein.
Yeah, exactly. Concentrated lactose is not great. And it's, I mean, I don't know. I don't like having, an unhealthy gut is just not a good time to me. And that's why I avoid that whey concentrate. I think some people maybe will handle it, but the vast majority, like that meme, man, like talking about like your rank ass is like, that's not you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I am violently lactose intolerant, and probably one of my favorite foods in the world is cheese.
Oh yeah.
And so I don't know if I'll ever know if my supplements are ineffective or not, because it's never right. Like I just choose to tolerate it sometimes. And like
but if you're intolerant, you physically can't tolerate it.
Oh, I just tolerate it. It's a choice. But we weigh the pros and cons. There's an internal monologue and an external monologue. It all goes hand in hand.
Yeah. I prefer to feel good, man. I only eat things that my gut and my body agree with. I mean, there's once in a while I might splurge a little bit on stuff, right? I'm mostly gluten free, but sometimes I just gotta wreck a pizza, man. Yeah. That's on occasion, though. That's not daily.
That's true, because that gluten is a tough one.
I'm not gluten intolerant though.
It just causes inflammation, I feel like.
Yeah.
I just don't feel great on it. But I'll tolerate it. The same as Nick will tolerate some cheese and everything, but not be violently, oh man. Because that would be rough though. Our behind the scenes guy, Frank, he is lactose intolerant and he tries his best to tolerate it routinely. I mean, it's you can't say no to ice cream or a Blizzard.
I'm not even lactose intolerant, and I avoid lactose most of the time because I don't know, you just don't need it. So, and plus I drink Fairlife milk, which has way more protein and it actually tastes good for lactose free milk. Mm-hmm. Cause what is the other one? There's lactate or whatever. It's just so nasty. Ugh. But Fairlife tastes like normal milk, and you get 14 grams of protein per cup. So it's a little more expensive, but I don't consume a lot of lactose, and I'm you think that I have a pretty boring diet the way I avoid things, but then you just watch my Instagram and you see that I cook all kinds of fun stuff. So.
That's true. We actually, though, there was one prerequisite for you coming on the show.
And I'm actually drinking a little gluten.
Oh, we lost him. Are you back? I was like, you dropped off briefly. Everything. Darren was wondering, do you brine your chicken when you cook it?
Yeah, we gotta understand the rotisserie chicken.
My first question is there somebody out there not brining raw chicken when they cook it?
They can't be friends with me if they don't.
That's like trying to tell me someone doesn't season their chicken. That's a crime.
You get extra bonus points if you pipe butter under the skin first. Also,
I'm just saying, if you can't get that meat moist and the skin crispy, that's a wrap. That's
what's the secret though? What's the secret to great rotisserie chicken?
So I'll be honest, I don't make my own rotisserie chicken. Oh. I'm an advocate for buying the rotisserie chicken.
Okay.
So that is my argument to everybody. I'm still in the Army Reserve for another couple months. And one of the most common things I always hear from younger soldiers is, oh, I work. Oh, I don't have time to meal prep. I don't have time to prepare and cook chicken. I'm tired. And so my first argument is do you have a Walmart, a Costco, a Sam's Club? Now, mind you, those chickens are ranked. and I will get to that. But
I was about to say with that list, it's like hopefully that the order in which you name them is not their
no.
list of favoritism.
Believe it or not, Walmart is the superior rotisserie chicken by flavor, and Costco is superior by size. Sam's is superior by cost. There's a triage of lists. It really depends on what you're going for there. But saying you don't have time to cook, like I get that. Sure, because like I remember being a young soldier on the fly, and doing side gigs, side jobs, and all that. And I was like, but how easy is it to grab an already cooked, already seasoned, delicious bird? You pick the breast meat off. You figure out what you want to do with the dark meat, if you're trying to stay real lean or not, but I eat all of it, so it doesn't make much difference to me.
Eat that one.
Right.
Bird.
And then,
I would actually eat the dark meat and give the white meat to somebody else.
That's the flavor. I too choose the dark meat. It is a preference.
Yes.
But there's a great article by Joy Laws of Proactive Health Labs that talks about the chicken skin being like a previous taboo for years, because they pushed it's scary fats, it's heavy fats, you're going to gain weight, blah, blah, blah. And she talks about all these benefits. When we talk about how many people these days take collagen supplements in the hopes that that'll help them, when you could just be eating chicken skin. Yep. Everyone's worried about cholesterol. What about all the unsaturated fats that you'd be getting from your chicken skin? And it tastes good. There's a million of these chicken chips out here where they make chips with the skin, but suddenly the chips are healthy, even though it's still freaking chicken skin. And I mean, you go into a Walmart, I think they're like $5-6 at Walmart. Costco, same thing.
For like a couple pounds. For like a couple 2 or 3 pound bird, right?
Yeah, they average. I want to say it's about 3 and 3.5 pounds.
It's cheap
at Costco. Walmart's are like 2.5 to 3. They're a little smaller, but that's because Walmart doesn't pump a sodium solution in them. They just cook the bird and toss it in. Costco balloons it up a little bit, but either way.
But that's your brining though, basically.
Exactly. I mean, you're getting good flavor. You're getting, you get about 2 to 3 cups of breast meat off of that bird. You get about a cup to a cup and a half of dark meat, and you get roughly a quarter cup of the chicken skin to about 150 grams. So I mean, you're talking about a well-rounded set of protein and fats that you would.
Oh, sounds back.
Ha! There we go.
I was gonna start having you like blink twice if you can hear us.
Yeah, we're good. So I guess that's what you get for getting like a lavalier mic set off of Timo. That's all right. So I don't know where it cut out, and I apologize, y'all.
We were talking about the quality, like getting, whatever you said, 2 or 3 cups of breast meat, cup and a half of dark meat, plenty of skin, good protein, good fats. It's cheap. I agree with that. Like I used to buy rotisserie chickens too. I might have to start doing that again, because you're right. They are pretty cheap for already done chicken. It's pretty tasty. I like the whole avoidance of fat is just silly. Your body needs all kinds of fats. It needs saturated fat. You can't, if you avoid saturated fat, you will literally die. You cannot live without saturated fat. And even cholesterol, especially for natty men, cholesterol is what your body uses to make testosterone. Cholesterol's. I don't think there's, I'm not a doctor, and I'm sure some doctor out there will argue with me, but other than a ratio of HDL to total cholesterol, right? The higher your HDL is, I've read whatever that your cholesterol level is really unimportant, right? Your total cholesterol, what's really important is that ratio of HDL to total cholesterol,
right?
So trying to avoid cholesterol in general is kind of silly, and worrying about your cholesterol level, like worry about your HDL, of course, and maybe your LDL to an extent if it's like super, super high as well. But there's so many good things from meat. I mean, we're talking about BCAAs again. Like there's tons of BCAAs in all animal products. There's tons of creatine. Now, that's another supplement. I mean, creatine's dirty cheap. So I guess if you want to take it. But the reality is you don't need to if you're eating enough protein. I target 320 grams of protein a day is my target, and that provides me with almost 8 grams of creatine a day. Why do I need to supplement more creatine?
Yeah,
I don't think there's a reason to, but yeah, I mean, the excuse of I don't have time, for anything, diet, exercise, or otherwise, is like, no, you're just really bad at scheduling and holding yourself accountable, right?
and it's true. Like, I mean, the people, if you want it bad enough, you will find a way, right? Like, that's the golden rule. It goes, that's eating, that's training, that's sleeping. The core tenets of maintaining a certain level of physical fitness boils down to, badly enough, it will happen. You will make it happen. But we all look for those little hacks. And I feel like rotisserie chicken, what a hack. Someone already did the hard part for you.
Right.
You just stuff a fist in the bag and start clawing meat out. Boom. You ain't even got to separate it. You take a good chunk and it's just the skin. You got breast meat, rip a wing off. I mean, chef's kiss. It's done for you.
And I mean, I'm one of those weird people that will pick like every little piece of meat off off a bird carcass. And I'll eat everything. Like, and when it's rotisserie, it just like literally falls off. Like, you can get so much extra meat off of a rotisserie chicken. It's amazing.
I mean, I bought the whole bird. I'm going to get the whole bird. If you buy the whole thing, use the whole thing. I bought the whole car, so I should use the whole speedometer. There's rules to this stuff.
Right. It's amazing, though, how much people throw away. Like, that never ceases to amaze me. Growing up, or, people that I've known over the years will just like cut off the chicken breast and like leave a whole bunch, or even turkey during Thanksgiving, man. I can't tell you how many times I've seen like people just leave like tons of breast meat on the carcass and throw it away. And I'm like, dude, that's like turkey and dumplings, man. Put that thing into a pot and get all that meat off of there, right? The extra flavor. I mean, there's like, people talk too, like it's expensive to eat in the United States, but there's so many ways to save money. Even cutting, like buying whole chickens and cutting them down yourself. Like chicken breast right now is like $8 a fucking pound. You can go buy a whole chicken and just do it for yourself in like a minute and save $5 a pound.
Yeah. Well, and we have this weird, like, we're one of the only countries that does this. We have this weird culture where we don't use all of the pieces of what we eat. I mean, even like my grandparents, they're not around anymore, but like one of the big things, like, okay, you get a chicken, we're not just going to eat the chicken breast off it and whip the carcass in the garbage, like bone stock. Yeah. Where's that marrow going? Like you're talking about things that have a holistic purpose, both in nutrients and minerals, just as much as flavor. And that can carry over to another dish, over to another, a benefit. Like, I don't know how many people remember watching Brian Shaw talk about adding bone broth to his rice to give it some protein and give it flavor without having to flavor it. And that was like, easy peasy. Okay.
Yeah, but here's even another level to that. I buy bone broth like in the cartons off the shelf, and then I take my chicken bones and I make extra bone broth. And you basically are going to double the amount of protein per cup of your bone broth, and you're not wasting anything.
Unrelated, but kind of related. This is just because you said you had more bone broth than chicken. I had a friend in middle school, and it haunts me to this day, but he loved the flavor of taking like powdered milk and adding it to his milk so he could have more milk with his milk. He just loved the taste of milk. And I saw a meme about it later in life, and I swear to God, someone else met him.
That's like, but again, Fairlife milk, man, you're getting like almost double the protein per cup. Why not? I mean, that is a bit more expensive, but I actually like that idea. I'm going to start buying. Well, I remember Pujanowski at one time had said one of the secrets to building muscle was malted milk. He would drink a lot of malted milk.
I believe it. The guy's an animal.
He was an animal. So, I mean, I'm just thinking about milk inside of milk.
Yeah. Milkception. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
but like, especially in this era where like we have fear mongering by like virtue of nutrients. Like we're afraid of fat, we're afraid of sugar, we're afraid of carbs, we're afraid like everything is told that it's bad. And I mean, you can look at like there's hard data out there to show what early diets looked like and what the people looked like and what the performance levels were like. People that walked all day and night, people that hunted by virtue of like hand, fist, and spear, they weren't like, ew, chicken skin and throwing it off to the side.
They were eating the heart and the liver and the gizzard.
Yeah.
They were
all of it.
Probably making soup from the head. Yeah.
I think the main thing is we have this weird perception. People always be like the life expectancy back then was like 35. They act like everyone died at 35. It's like, no, if you lived past 5 years old, you'd live into your 70s or 80s. It's just a lot of people died before.
That's a bit of a skewed statistic though, too, because the infant mortality rate was so high.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, it certainly wasn't, 78 or whatever it is for men today, but, people always act like even in the Middle Ages, everybody died at 35. Well, that's not true at all. There's plenty of records of people living into their 80s throughout history, right? So whenever you quote those mortality rates, they're an average and they're skewed because of infant mortality. Generally,
it's a weird statistic, but like also people would die from like exposure. Like, oh no, it snowed, dead. Yeah. Oh no, tiger, dead. Like. Right. We don't worry about that. I can shoot the tiger now. Like I have the tools. We're not dying from the same things, but we are dying from diets. We're very much dying from complications of.
I think people are certainly reducing their life expectancy. We're all dying at some point in our lives, but they're reducing their life expectancy. You're right, because of poor dieting. And we look around the United States. Well, I think Mexico might have taken over as the most obese country in the world, but the United States isn't very far behind, right? We were number one for a very, very long time. And a lot of it probably boils down to the really crappy advice that we get directly from the USDA, right? The old food pyramid, encouraging everybody to eat lots and lots of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates aren't bad, right? As I always say, there's no such thing as bad food. There's only bad habits and bad choices, right?
Right.
But when you have a kind of a top-down approach, from the government pushing poor food choices onto the populace, that is not helping anybody either. And so people have, we grow up with a really bad relationship and understanding of food and diet in this country to begin with, and then. I don't want to get on the politics of COVID, but then COVID happened and we still didn't focus on nutrition and health, right? We still haven't learned anything.
I'm still waiting for the day that somebody can explain to me how in middle school at 10 in the morning, 2 slices of pizza, a fruit cup, and a chocolate milk was the ideal meal for like a 10-year-old.
It's because the foundation layer of the pyramid is all carbohydrates.
Yeah, I do. That school pizza though was pretty great, especially the milk in a bag.
It was the only thing that was good.
It's true. But bagged milk and those pizzas were like, because I don't know, for some reason a lot of people didn't have bagged milk, but we had bagged milk in elementary school, and it was the worst because like there were these flat little pouches, and if you stabbed them wrong, the straw would go through both sides. You just spill your milk everywhere, and you just have to shotgun it real fast. That's when you know that you went to like real fun school and you had bagged milk, and you could get chocolate milk or like, because it saves a ton on packaging. So I just bite the corners off and just like drink the milk all in one go. But that was the peak of nutrition back then, and they'd force you to get like a salad or something, and then all the kids would just throw it out. Just a scoop of like iceberg lettuce with some carrot shavings on it.
That's nutritious.
Yeah, just water and fiber.
But tying it into like strongman, I would argue to say that or at least I think there's more longevity in the competition levels of like the 105s, the 90s. The super heavyweights for so long. I mean, what was the trend? But like, who could be the biggest float lord just for the max? For a one max overhead event or one 18-inch deadlift that was 1,200 pounds, and you had these guys who were just running their bodies into the ground, running their joints into the ground. And while those are impressive feats, I'm not knocking anybody by any means. You can only do that for so long. Meanwhile, we have 105s. Like if you just watched America's Strongest Man with the 105s, incredible. I mean, there are plenty of super heavyweights that can't handle 430 a hand on a farmer's pick and run. And I believe they had 3 or 4 people that were able to get it at least off the starting line. I mean, that's strength, but that's cardio. That's having enough mindfulness of health to be able to move with that wave. It's one of the more entertaining classes to watch these days.
I think you'll find though. I mean, there is certainly a correlation between body composition and mobility and endurance and whatnot. And the lighter you get, right? You look at CrossFit. Almost all of the men are under 200 pounds. Almost all the women are 160, right? And the reason is because they perform better at lighter body weights at the high endurance events. I think there's a couple guys that do really well that are 220 or so, but for the most part, the vast majority of them are 200 because that's the body type that favors that sport and that high endurance. But you'll always see. Like I said, 105, I've competed against lots of heavyweights, even heavyweight pros, and things like sandbag carries or Husafeld. Like they just can't. That's an event that I know that I'll always win against those guys because I just have better endurance and better. I don't know, less gut pushing out on the implement. I don't know, but.
I mean, you're just comfortable. Your joints aren't screaming. I think you can breathe a little easier because you're not pushing so much mass against, your chest.
Exactly.
And I mean, I compete in super heavyweight. I'm aware of how, I look at my competition, how we're like, oh, who's going to make it a full lap on this per distance event? It is really interesting when you have the opportunity to pit like skill sets, but at different weight classes, and see where the strengths and weaknesses are. I had the opportunity years ago to do. It was just a special class for like veterans and stuff, and I went against a 105 athlete at super heavyweight, and I took the deadlift event, and there was a mammoth bar deadlift. Easily took it over him, and then we had a max Husafeld carry, and we're doing the same for distance event. And for my 4 laps, he did 8. There wasn't even a point of me trying. And when it comes down to it, I don't think my slightly higher deadlift was much more entertaining to watch than this guy just full gears down, running with this crazy object back and forth and back and forth. And that makes me kind of wonder if that's not why we're starting to see a shift in the event choices for things like OSG, World's Strongest Man, and in turn, who's actually winning.
Right.
Mitch Hooper is one of the most endurance-hardened, deep tank having dudes I've seen on that stage, I think, in a while.
Right.
Before that, it was Martins and the impressive he was with his ability to still do like muscle up stuff.
Right.
But then you have Mitch Hooper, who was I think was a triathlete in his younger years, and then a cross-country runner. And even though he's building strength now, you don't lose that level of conditioning that quickly. And watching him the shield carry this year. I mean, he was holding on by fingertips, but his tank was so deep he could just keep chugging along.
Right.
That side step though was so good that he did. Just like watching Tom just like shuffling side to side, I was like, that was a highlight of like that. Watching that, and the other most recently.
That's got to be hot and Tom,
Yeah.
though, man.
Oh, that has to. I was like, it's up there with like we've had a lot of good Hoosfellstone things recently between Derek Owens, friend of the show, having his mishap with his shorts, doing Hoosfell chaos, and then John Hack just sprinting to the point where he lapped Nick O'Hare. Then Nick, of course, passed by with endurance there. That's also part of it, though. It's like that slow and steady approach.
John Hack is a terrifying athlete. The fact that he is that statically strong and just also in such good shape to just turn up into an international strongman comp, come in second and be like, okay, and then just go back to normal life.
Third.
Like that was great.
He took third after the tiebreaker with Nick.
Right.
O'Hare. Yeah,
that's right. Sorry,
that's true.
But still, he still stood on a podium. Powerlifter, when powerlifters historically don't normally do super well in strongman because of the lack of the endurance focus. They typically are like really statically strong, but not typically athletic. But John Hack really, I mean, I'm glad that he made the podium because I think a lot of people doubted him, and
for sure.
and he proved a lot of people wrong. Plus his following. I mean, brought a lot of great exposure to the sport. So, I mean,
for sure,
we need more of that.
Just the fact that he's willing to try it, that's one thing is like, if you're at least willing to give it a taste, like, I think it's fun to just mix it up sometimes, like even for strongmen going to powerlifting, just to have a chance to break up the training, get exposure to a different style. I mean, I'm not very much well into the strength training years yet. I've only been doing this for a handful of years. But I was curious about powerlifting. Like, I'm doing a powerlifting meet at the end of the year, and just the difference in deadlift technique is already throwing me for such a loop. And like my coach is Colton Rhodes, who's been powerlifting for a decade, who just switched to doing strongman. And, we talk about the same like crossover qualms of like, having gotten so used to doing things one way, it is honestly an exciting challenge to be kind of sucky at something for a minute and actually have to learn and work hard at it. Like it's not just like, oh, I was good at that, so I'm good at this.
I can relate. I started doing Highland Games in March. That is I think powerlifting probably would have been easier because I already know how to squat, deadlift, and bench. I may not be like super strong in them, but at least I don't have any form issues to really work out. But yeah, Highland Games is so technical. It's completely different.
Yeah, it's
so, I mean, I'm with you though, on like challenging yourself and going and learning something new and taking yourself out of your comfort zone and realizing that that working across sports is advantageous to strongman because strongman kind of pulls from a lot of different strength sports and explosive like track and field and I mean weightlifting, powerlifting, right? Even Highland Games, and it's only going to make you a better athlete.
For sure. I mean, just taking the opportunity to like just try something different, and I'm super fortunate because I just wound up in Oklahoma. Like that was an accident, and in New York, kind of. So it was a weird transition. But in New York, I lived there for most of my years before I came here, and it was mostly bodybuilding. And there's such a disparity in sports, like the strength sports coming from the Northeast to like the Midwest South area. Every once in a while I'll go up there even just because I see a comp that looks fun, and it's me, and then the next lightest guy or the next heaviest guy is like 100 pounds lighter. Like it's not so big there. And I'm super fortunate because I wound up here at Brewhouse Barbell in Oklahoma City, and we train at the Depth Gym, Southwest Barbell as well sometimes. And so, like, I'm watching these athletes who have all these different backgrounds. I mean, you've got Hannah Coldiron, who was a CrossFit competitor before she did strongman. You've got Jackie Rhodes, who finished 12th OSG last year, who also did CrossFit before she was a powerlifter, who then became a strongman. Colton, like I said, he was rocking almost a 2100 total, I think, in sleeves. I mean, he's probably going to correct me after this because I don't know everyone's stats, but Al Sokup, the Sokup brothers, train out of this gym, and they were just curious one day, got in strongman, and Al's been training just as long as I have. We started actually the same week, and he's top 10 OSG. I think he just came in. He's going to punch me for this. I think like 6th in America's Strongest Man. It's been a long day. Pardon me, I've been up since like 3 a.m.
Nobody expects you to remember everybody's life, and if they do,
but I try.
Too bad. It's good. At least you're making an effort.
But the point being, just like, it's really interesting to watch people from all these different backgrounds and how they interact, crossing sports. Al just did a powerlifting meet last year as well, just to try it out. First powerlifting meet, never did powerlifting before. Came out with like a 457 dots and almost a 1900 total.
Nice.
It's just wild to see how people can bounce around and how they flourish back in their normal, sport of choice when they do dip their toes into something new that forces them to think about their training differently.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing people don't always think about is, and John Hack proves it, is like, if you're an elite level athlete, part of what that means is like being good at a variety of things and having all those things dialed in. Because one thing that's really exciting is the deadlift world championship deadlift or something Jamal Browner's doing, and like watching him go from like a few years ago, like 900 some pounds was a big deal with sumo, and now he's doing 959 for a double, almost a triple conventional. You're like, that's wild to like watch these people. But a part of it, and I think a lot of people are doubting John Hack, and it's like, you don't get to the top of your sport by not being an incredible athlete that could probably jump into most anything. And there are technique issues. Like John Hack, like if he hadn't like sprinted so fast with the sandbags, he'd have actually picked up more points, like being able to just load that over. Like he did come in third, but like a few things he did that were like so explosive and fast, like the power stairs, to not set them down before the first stairs. Like that's an insane amount of power to just run up, just slightly lift it and just hit the stairs.
For sure.
But yeah, people don't always realize that like part of that is like you want to be good at everything. Like Mitchell Hooper was like into rugby and has done a large amount of things, and it's like it all goes much farther. So you do see those people who like they can jump into other sports and do pretty well, surprisingly. Like once you pick up, there is a learning curve. Like Olympic weightlifting would be very hard to just jump into and stuff. Yeah. But like strongman, powerlifting, and CrossFit, like they can kind of cross over a bit easier.
Yes,
for sure.
Everything, which is always important. Yeah,
for sure.
That's just my 2 cents about that.
But it is interesting as they push that conditioning more and more, how the weights change in the strongman side of competition.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got super lucky to get caught in the hurricane, go take pictures for the Brewhouse group and kind of help handle them with their coach at OSG last year. And the first thing I noticed was like, I watch these guys day in and day out, what they do in the gym, what they do when they compete, like how heavy and what a challenge like the men's weights were. And then noticing like the women, it was almost like a rep off for most of their events, and I'm kind of wondering, in the future, like, are we going to see like the open women struggle to get like 1 rep or 2 reps like the men do on their higher level competitions? Or are we going to see the men start getting into like high count rep offs? Are they going to bring the weights down to get more of an endurance challenge, or are we going to start seeing some like true zeros coming on the women's side?
I think it's a tough one because Christine Matthews, Panda on Instagram, she was talking about a lot of promoters never check the women's weights for things. Like she was saying she's seen like some pro level like 141 shows or like U64 class, having weights like the overhead press is like 135. You're like, these are women who are hitting over 200 pounds now at 141.
I think
maybe like it's hard because like the field is smaller, so you kind of have to appeal to everyone.
Women are really advancing very quickly right now too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit of that going. I mean, go back just a couple of years, and I think correct. I'm going to get correct on this probably too, but Melissa Peacock, I think, was in the middleweight and just hit a 275 axle. Now you've got, I know Inez is a bit heavier weight, but she just hits 320 log, right? And then in training, a 355 axle split jerk. So, I mean, in just a couple of years, that is a hell of an evolution. And now we've got, women that are pulling mid sixes, coming in on the 700 mark. So I think, kind of the evolution of the sport always is, though. It is a bit cyclical regardless. I mean, I've been around the sport since 2008. And over the years, it goes through cycles of really heavy, it lightens out, gets more endurance focused. And a lot of times it depends on the promoters too. But I do think with the women, part of what you probably are seeing right now is that promoters aren't really caught up yet to the evolution of women's strength. And we may see that soon, where it does get to a point where you start seeing a lot of zeros and less rep fests. But I would imagine the future is still going to cycle back to rep fests at some point in time anyway. Or even men. I mean, the evolution of strength is moving pretty quickly. And I think, even at OSG, the Viking press was really heavy. You have a lot of zeros, but you had guys like Nick Hine who like just destroyed the shit out of it, right?
Yeah.
Who knew that was coming? I mean, we know Nick's strong, but holy shit. So yeah, I mean, it's a guessing game, I think, to some extent. What's going to be challenging, for everybody, but not everybody zero, and not have like a nonstop rep fest. I mean, man, the strength world is hard to follow. There's so many people that just come out of nowhere and surprise the hell out of us.
It is, and I was listening to Lynn talk about how he was kind of trying to pick weight. And one of the things he had, I heard him talk about on one of the interviews he did was he was considering taking like the online qualifiers and using those to kind of adjust some weights once he understood what people were capable of. And I'm curious to see, because we are still quite a ways out, but I mean, there are some, kind of not trying to dig too deep in the women's side. Obviously, I can't speak too personally from that, but there are some animals. There are some absolute mass-moving units.
Yes.
And I think they could put on some crazy performances if the stage was set correctly, and something that was pointed out to me about like the open women's weights for the regional qualifiers for with Circuit Dumbbell, the regionals coming up here in Texas in just a few weeks, is like 2 pounds lighter than the one in the medley for the actual, world's strongest woman OSG competition in their medley. And it's like, if you can qualify to get to that level, I know some of these women have so much more strength. And I think, getting to the point where if you're going to say I'm top 10 in the world, like people below you should be zeroing for sure. And so I'm interested to see if those weights will change.
There is something to say though. I mean, strongman isn't 100% about strength, right? It's about,
Sure.
It's about endurance or conditioning. You've got grip strength, explosiveness, your ability to move. So there is a fine line. You can't just make everything super heavy. And at the end of the day,
Sure.
no matter what the weight is, when you go into a field of competitors at that level, everything is max effort. It doesn't matter what the weight is, right?
For sure. I mean, watching last year, the sandbag ladder, I will tell you right now, I don't know of many events that test both strength and endurance quite like a sandbag ladder. And I think that was That was a huge divider on that field.
Yeah. And I think we are seeing like an interesting point, because there are some of these people, especially in the women's thing, I think people are starting to catch up, but there's almost this tier of people who are just like so far ahead of everyone that it's crazy to see. If like you brought up Lucy Underdowns, her women's deadlift record is 661, and she hit that for like a triple, and then she hit 683, and you realize like, I think for the first time you're starting to have people actually like make it a competitive field, because I think an interesting point that Victoria Long brought up to us is sometimes promoters and other people, they don't want women to fail, so they'll either allow controversial reps on like a deadlift or something, or they'll make the weights low enough that like no one's feeling bad about themselves because everyone's getting at least one. And she was like, no, how you get the best competition is by getting the best people to go the distance. And I think for too long they've kind of wanted to make it so if there's 10 women in a class, everyone's going to hit a rep. And it's like, there are some women doing 320-pound logs and some people who aren't doing that. And you're going to have like a discrepancy there of, I think we're just now seeing the evolution of it, because I don't think a few years ago you'd have imagined that you don't know which woman's going to hit 700 pounds first, because there's enough people in there. Of like Hannah Lindsay just did the Denny Stones, like second woman to do them without straps. Like, that's huge. And we're just seeing these things.
And arguably with a little bit of comfort. You know, like even with Lucy Underdown, she was like smiling in the first rep. Mm-hmm. I don't smile at that weight. But it's the caliber of athlete has shot through the roof, you know, and I'm looking forward personally to see how that influences both the promoters in the sport just as much as the athletes that see that and say, okay, I can't, it's not enough to just show up anymore. Like, I can't just be a good deadlifter if, you know, Lucy Underdowns is going to be there, because she's going to force me to take a challenge. I can't be a good presser if Inez is going to be there. I can't be a good circus dumbbell if Sam Bellevue or Mel Peacock are there. Like, I need to be great. Like, I need to shoot higher and train to that caliber now. You know, this is not, you know, especially moving out of like a local competition level. I get local comps will tailor to the local populace, but, you know, I think there is so much room that arguably, like, they want that challenge. They're hungry for that challenge. You know, I've listened to quite a few of like other interviews with some higher end female athletes, and they're like, no, you don't understand. Like, I want this. I want this challenge. Like, I'm here to show y'all that I'm going to. So
I missed the end of that real quick.
No, that most Ben won't touch.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's a part that makes a difference. Is like you said, you want, like, as a professional woman, you should be hitting exceptional weights and everything, because it is like, you want to be a top tier athlete. If you see with like Luke Davis and like Reed, the numbers she's been putting up over the past few years are just insane for someone that size. Of like, very few men out there, like outside of like super hardcore lifting things, are hitting those kind of numbers. And she's doing it routinely. And you even see up and coming athletes like Morgan Irons was the only woman who did our bazooka lift challenge and everything. And she just did it as a fun whim in between training sessions and hit like 200 some pounds to her shoulder pretty decently, when like some guys were struggling with that. Yeah. And she won Static Monsters a few weeks back, and then just did a powerlifting meet and is now like 19th in the world in wraps in her class or whatever. And then she's doing the Shaw Classic. And you're like, these people are eating at the heels of those top level people. Because I don't think many people could place comfortably in a powerlifting meet after doing Static Monsters like the week before, or traveling, like going to London and doing all that stuff, then coming back and like hitting these things. So I think we're seeing an era that just like hasn't been seen before, because everyone's pushing each other. As the sport grows, there is going to be a competitive field. And I think it's interesting because Darren will routinely talk about how like a lot of people feel like strongman's for everyone, so you kind of have to cater to everyone. But I think we're getting to the point where a lot of these weights and those comps, you simply might not hit the things, because I think a lot of like super heavyweight athletes, because they don't have to hit a weight class, they aren't as competitive as they could be, because it's just kind of like, I just eat as much as I want, show up, put up 300-pound log or whatever in my small class, and that'll get you to nationals. And it's like, Inez is looking leaner than ever and hitting 355 like off of blocks, but that's still like
just so insane. There's not a lot of, there's not even a lot of U105s that will hit that routinely in training.
And she looks comfortable. That's
comfortable.
Always the impressive part, where it's not like no nose running blood, no eyeballs popping veins. Shows effort, of course, but like it isn't sweating it. Like could easily now between now and the next event do more.
It didn't look max effort,
especially for someone who literally just started lifting since COVID started, 2020. Like watching her like journey, she was like the past 3 years. Any other athlete, you'd be like, that's a crazy 10-year timeline. And then it's just like here, just like hitting 600-pound squat because she realized she was strong. And it's like, that's an insane thing to do, like entering a sport and like already as a woman, like more than double body weight squats and stuff like that. Like that's crazy. And she's just getting started because she's still relatively young, of like even Victoria Long, like all these athletes, they're not in their 30s yet even. And so we're seeing people just now take off. And I think it's good overall, but I think it will challenge that thing of like, is strongman for everyone, or are we going to get to the point where more comps will have serious enough weights that it is for a smaller tier of people? Because you can't just cater to like everyone.
Well, I think strongman at the amateur novice level certainly can be for everyone, right?
But, that's true.
But I mean, the NFL is not for everyone, right? The NBA is not for everyone, right? I mean, you get to a level where that's for the elite, and they've put in the time, right? They've earned their place at the table. They deserve to be there. So you definitely do weed out a lot of people at that point.
But there has to be that kind of level if you're going to get sponsors and you're going to get money involved. Nobody wants to pay good money, like livable money, to support the version of a little league team in strongman. They want these athletes that are doing just cannot fathom level feats that are going to show the world that there's something out there in the sport. Like that's how you draw these sponsors in. It's how you perpetuate the sport. I mean, we went from just a handful of years ago where World's Strongest Man and the Arnold were pretty much the only ways you to win them. You had to win both to really like make a true living off of competing. And I mean, now you've got the Rogue paying out 6 figures. You've got the Shaw Classic who's paying out not just their pros, or not like their high level pros, but their open competitors that do well, and is benefiting them with all that. Obviously exposure. With the joke, you can't pay bills with exposure, but it's allowing these people a venue to monetize themselves. That. It's a good chance for athletes in the sport to come to the table and say, hey, like I'm ready to eat. Here's how I want to do it.
That's true. It's rough though if you're not really that good at social media, because I'm like, not everyone like you're actually really decent at it. I noticed you can like subscribe to your Instagram now and stuff and all these things, but it's crazy to realize how much of that is like now. Not only do you have to be like the strongest man in the world, you also have to have a decent camera presence and like a good like.
Well, it's always kind of been that's always sort of been the thing, though. Because I mean, you even go back to like you said back when the Arnold and World's Strongest Man were the only real payouts. But I mean, all of your big athletes, Pujanowski, Z, Shaw, like they were making their money from endorsements. That's what they were making, and Shaw, they were all making, $500,000 to $1 million a year off of endorsements, and that's because of their social media presence, YouTube. Well, I think Pujanowski, was just super famous in Poland, but still it was endorsements, right? His face was getting out in front of the public, and it is exposure. Because I argue all the time that the real money is in through exposure, because sponsors need an ROI, right? And the purpose of sponsoring an athlete is to get their name out as a marketing tool, right? And if their athlete's not being seen or the show's not being watched, sponsors renege, and we saw that with Clash in the Coast. Right? That's a big deal. You have to have the viewership, and you have to have the exposure to have that money, and that goes right down to the athletes. I mean, we've talked about that on here before. The platform is out there if you know how to to manipulate it to your will. I'm terrible at it, but
I mean, the truth is, it's not enough to be strong. It's not enough to be strong anymore. I mean, you have to have some outlet that has some investment capability for a company that you want to get something out of. I mean, there's I think he's from North Texas, but Donald Tergalia had just posted recently because he's had a bunch of TikTok videos go viral. Just him dancing, dancing to music after his workouts with his buddies, the gym. He got an invite, I think it's to America's Got Talent. Just by virtue of he's been so viral and seen, not for any of his lifting stuff necessarily, which is a shame because he is an incredible deadlifter. He is a comfortable 900-pound deadlift. But, he's a big dude, both stature, I think he's like mid 6 foot, and muscular. And people see this dude dancing, and they want to share it. And those companies don't care that he's a 900-pound deadlifter, but they see how interactive and how many people are going to see it. And that's the dollar sign. I mean, that's economic 101.
There's a lot of guys out there a lot of, men and women, influencers, if you will, right, that aren't really terribly strong. And if you roam around Instagram enough, you'll find some just real trash content where these people are like, they have hundreds of thousands of followers and endorsements, and they're selling just pure trash. Like you said, it's about the presence, and a lot of sponsors really care more about that than they care about your abilities. Like the ability to interact with the populace is more important, I think, when it comes to social media and marketing than your strength. Because even SCL, there's some athletes that are always on the circuit because they're super entertaining, right? They're not necessarily strong. They're just really entertaining, and that helps sell their product, right?
100%, yeah, 100%.
That's true, and it is. I think it's an interesting thing to say, like, utilize that platform, because realizing John Hack's kind of an awkward person on camera and everything. If you've ever watched a YouTube video with him, it's interesting but he still does it. Like, you can tell he's not comfortable being on camera, and like probably wouldn't do it if he didn't have to, but it like do these videos because it's always funny watching him interact with other people, kind of like Halfthor, of like watching him interact with almost any YouTuber. You're like, but that's where the money is. Like, people were saying, a lot of people, they're like laughing when like Mitchell Hooper didn't win the Strongman Classic or whatever. They were like, he shouldn't have spent so much time trying to be an influencer. And it's like, Brian Shaw makes over $500,000 a year.
I think he's over $1 million.
Like, over $1 million.
I think
like,
it's $1 million now.
Like, which is a more stable income? Like your prize money for a competition that might not happen, or consistent like payouts? Because brands do want that exposure of like, they want to see that ROI of like, if it doesn't matter if you're the strongest man in the world, but you don't sell yourself well and you're doing it to a small audience, brands are a lot less likely to do something than if you're like talking to everyone and stuff. But it does take time. And the advice I'd give anyone, as someone who really before last year didn't like being on camera at all, like I didn't have pictures of myself, very many videos and stuff. And like, you just have to get used to it and everything. But it is a weird requirement now to realize that like to make a comfortable living, getting to know social media is like probably the best thing you can do, but also like minor like graphics things and stuff, of realizing Canva is a great affordable resource for most people to like make eye-catching thumbnails, make an eye-catching animated intro or something. And I think
for sure
it'll be interesting to see where it goes in that direction now that everyone has a channel of stuff like Big Laws and stuff. Like him and Liz are like, their podcast and stuff is huge, and the videos they do are impressive. And you realize that like part of why like Romark and Martins were such a great dynamic duo is they showed that you could make consistent, entertaining content. And like if people are engaged, of like Martins, like for one, he was strongest man in the world and stuff, but he's also a very fun person. and stuff. So it's interesting to see that, like, being a charismatic person as well. And he also does prove that, like, you can be too heavy for this sport. Of, like, when he injured himself at the Rogue Invitational, he said he was too heavy to get a good stone load position. So he hurt his bicep. So it is like, you have to measure so many forces now. You can't just be like, I'm just going to race to 400 pounds and then I'm going to make it. It's like, no, you have to actually, like, watch some of your diet. You have to be good on camera. So it's an interesting dynamic to see how it'll go in the next few years and stuff, now that things are popping up. Because, like, even now, we've argued before on the show, is World's Strongest Man still the most prestigious show in the world, or is it just a title that's coveted and stuff?
For sure. And I think with Brian Shaw having this show retitled, what is it, the Strongest Man in the World?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
it's
Strongest Man on Earth, I think.
Strongest Man on Earth, yes. I mean, titles are exactly that. They're just titles.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about, like, social media, like, I'll be the first one to admit I am a charismatic black hole. Like, it starts and ends the second this camera opens. I don't like looking at myself on the camera. And especially for people who want to get out there and get seen and get some type of following, nobody cares about my lift videos. I post the lift videos more so I have a log so I can scroll back when I forgot what I did last week.
Right.
But, the most engaged content that I get is memes.
Oh, we lost your audio again.
Okay, yeah, we lost your audio.
Can't hear you.
How about now?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. You said so you said your most engaging posts are memes. That's where we lost you.
Most engaging post by far recently is I posted a poll, and it was like, what's the next PR I'm going to hit? And it was like bench, deadlift, squat, or blood pressure. I had 140 people respond blood pressure. I don't know most of them, but that's just it. Is it was such a stupid, ridiculous thing, and people engage. And the second they engage, that's what feeds those algorithms. The Instagram doesn't care if you're impressive or not. They want to see if people are going to interact with you to know if they should pump you into that feed or not.
Yeah.
I posted a poll the other day about waffles versus pancakes. Hundreds and hundreds of viewers, hundreds of people interacted. And that has nothing to do with my page. But it's something that people relate to. And if you can get some type of relatability to people, whether it's about the sport, about who you are outside of the sport, like, getting people to come to that level with you will cause your growth, especially at a lower level, until you're known for something.
It's true. And I assume the answer is waffles is the correct answer to that. Waffles or pancakes?
Waffles was in the lead for about 12 hours. Pancakes came out on top. Pancakes came screaming out.
I think that's just because, like, pancakes are more, like, universal, everything. But a good waffle, a well-done waffle is, like, an exceptional snack and everything.
I think the benefit of waffles, if you actually have a waffle maker, you can, like, make stuffed waffles. And that's just, like, game changer. Yeah.
Because, like, waffles and chicken are really good. That's, like, high quality, to take it back to the chicken conversation.
Yes.
And everything. But I think it's an interesting thing to think about. Like, our polls we're doing really well and stuff, because it is about an engagement market and stuff.
Sure.
To realize, like, that's why Jamal's so smart, is he'll have one really good deadlift session and he has enough content for the whole week, because he'll post the lifts leading up to it and everything, like the angles and stuff. And it is that, like, it's tough though, because it really is, you do have to, like, kind of be consistent about it and everything, because Instagram will decide you take 1 week off and they're like, oh, this guy's off the platform or something, which is ridiculous, because they're like, if you're not doing it daily and stuff and, like, keeping your name out there, like, the attention span's so short. I don't know if it's because our society's getting shorter attention spans, or algorithms just don't like use taking a break from any kind of social media.
I don't know. Well, I mean, I don't know. There was a point where I was putting a lot of time and effort into social media, in Instagram specifically. I was getting, I'd get 1,000 likes on a video. I was getting like 12,000 views, and then out of just nowhere, I couldn't get 100 views. And it went on and on and on. And I just that was a point of where I was just I gave up.
Well, the one thing I learned about, unfortunately, recently is shadow banning.
Yeah.
When you do something against the Instagram guidelines, and I reposted somebody else's meme, and Instagram chat it gives you a little pop up, and it's like you violated the community guidelines, and I thought that was the end of it. I was like, oh shoot, my bad, which was already ridiculous because it was literally just a meme that said easiest ways to get out of student debt. Step 1, die. And
hopefully, you'll get out of it, but if you have a cosigner, then they're stuck with it. So
there you go. But for like a week, I had to click a thing and acknowledge the suicide hotline help number. And I was like, all right, we're doing a little too much. But the first thing I noticed was that the week prior, I had one video get 50-something thousand views. The next 5 videos all got 10,000 plus views. And the second that happened, I was struggling to break 1,000 views. I could post it everywhere, tag whoever I wanted. It wouldn't budge. And I had spoken with another person that had the same issue. And they don't tell you they're doing it, but they stop feeding your content into into the real feed, into the explore page and stuff like that. And so, especially as a young strength athlete trying to grow a following, it's there's all this red tape you're stepping around without even knowing it.
Right.
Just trying to be authentic to get people to want to know who you are.
Yeah. And it is the craziest thing is there's a new feature on Instagram I just found this week. Someone followed the World's Strongest Opinions and my personal page. And when I went to follow them back, I got a big warning that said, this profile consistently posts misinformation and misleading facts. Are you sure you want to follow them? And you had to click a confirm thing. And the confirm button just didn't work for me. So I just couldn't add them back because and I was like, that's
But if you would have followed them, then they would have shadow banned the account.
That's
probably,
true. So you can't win because it's reposting who you associate with. Some people, for a while, it was a thing. If you liked a certain group of meme pages and stuff, you just would instantly, they'd only show you to your close friends list or something.
Yep.
Or,
I think that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Because I never got a warning or anything. I don't know what it was, but I think it was around COVID time when it all changed. Probably because I was liking all the anti-vaccine stuff. And they're shame on you.
When Instagram was in its early days, the algorithm was simple. And the algorithm was literally just hashtagging. And one of the things, I had a following a long time ago and then went dark on social media for a while. But the thing I would do is I would set, I would post 10 posts and I had copy paste things in my notes and I would do 30 hashtags a post. I would post 10 of the same posts with 30 different hashtags. Yep. So I had 300 hashtags worth of exposure. And that was instant. You just saw which post got the most engagement, deleted the other 9,
yep.
Rinse, wash, and repeat. And that, that was fine for their simple algorithm. But ever since COVID, I will say COVID was that spike in the side of anyone who didn't necessarily want to follow this caution tape around what you can and can't post, because in the inception of the internet there was no guidelines. This was the Wild West.
Right.
You were free to say what you wanted to say. And lately, I've even gotten warnings, and I'm super neutral. I kind of just float in the soup all the time. But I'll get warnings for things that just I don't even understand why I'm getting a warning. I posted just because I thought it was interesting.
Your microaggressions, man.
I guess I posted a study about just recovery of the muscles after you've had COVID, because it was COVID related. Because I've had COVID twice now, and I was like, hey, this is really interesting. I had a little fatigue after I had COVID the first time, and it took me a little bit to recover. And Instagram was like, whoa, whoa.
This is not approved COVID
I was
content.
like, what in the, these are doctors just saying, like, these are sports medicine. This is nothing about a vaccine in this entire article. And it's become such like a sensitive hot button topic that, like, if you almost have to pretend like it didn't exist. Or
because for a while, like Instagram, because they do YouTube, they actually transcribe your video now. If you go to the app, you can click it, and if it was in there at all, mentioned at all, it wouldn't show it to anyone unless they're subscribed to you, but also click the bell for all the notifications and had liked all your previous videos. You're like, that's this weird thing where, like, the strange thing is, like, the science was changing daily and everything, and you couldn't talk about it, which is like scientific exploration needs thorough examination and discussion. And it's this weird thing that they're like, no, unless it's approved discussion. Like, what was it? Snopes had the best thing a while back that they were like, it's an approved, like, this isn't a, they were like, it's factually true, but lacks context. So it's technically, they would say partially true or partially false.
Snopes always likes to say, well, you put a date on it, and they're like, well, actually the date was like 1 day later, so this whole thing is false. That's what they like to do, right?
Oh, it's always ridiculous.
And it's like, and I don't particularly care what side of it people are on. Like, again, like I'm just trying to exist, man. Like,
yeah.
I just want to eat my rotisserie chicken and thrive. But, like,
and be free to say what you want to say without it being authorized first. That's the thing, right? That's what we all as Americans believe in, that we should have, freedom to speak our mind, be controversial, have open dialogue without being censored because, our speech wasn't pre-approved. Like, that's insane. Regardless of what the topic is, honestly.
And I think it's, especially with, like, going back to, like, athletes growing a following, you could just, you could have all your content be your sport, your competitions, your PRs, and just, like, repost somebody else's meme, article, whatever. And depending on what platform you're on, that could very well be the end of your progression.
Oh, yeah.
If you watch
MSN, like the mainstream media, there's like several articles over the last couple of years. There was a period where it got like really bad, where people were going and like digging way into like past posts and likes even of like celebrities and what they had done to find something that they'd done wrong that wasn't, might have been okay 10 years ago, but isn't okay today. Like,
yeah, like
it's crazy that you can get like canceled or censored for something that you just liked. That's insane.
Well, and thinking about the position of wanting to become a big name, like, everyone wants to be a big athlete. Everyone wants to do big things, be on the front page of whatever article, whatever competition. They want to be right up there in the light, and acknowledging that, like, in this day and age, like, people are going to, everyone's an investigator.
Yeah.
Everyone's got enough free time and the resources to dig and will dig. And I don't know of anybody that could pass the vibe check if people decided to dig far enough, unless you just happen to live on a farm disconnected from the rest of the world your entire life and found society and was like, strong man, I'm good at this. Like, that's probably your only saving grace.
That's the reality, though, of cancel culture, is that it's all based on hypocrisy, because there's not a single one of us that are perfect, or, just, to use it colloquially, nobody has ever sinned, right? We're all sinners, whether you want to take that literally, or not. I'm not using it literally, but that's the truth, right? And yeah, we got to have a little bit more, I think a little bit more forgiveness of people and in this whole entire world of social media, and let people, be themselves and grow their brand and grow their presence without all this crazy interference and anxiety of who's going to judge who. And You know, I mean, obviously there's a point. I mean, you can't go out and be a total dickbag, but and expect to grow an audience. But I mean, come on, it's getting a little ridiculous.
Well, like right back around to the finite point of the sport. Like, think about the people that come to this sport and why they're here. You know, these are people who have usually gone through some stuff, have transitioned through some either traumatic, maybe bad childhoods, maybe bad relationships. People often find strongman for a reason. It's not often you find someone who's just like, well, I grew up in a strongman family and I tended to the strongman crops, and here I am in strongman land. Like, you know,
strongman crops. Yes.
People find it because it speaks to them. It gives them a place where they either feel appreciated, they feel safe, and it changes people for the better, I believe, because it gives them room to, in a way, grow stronger, but face those demons they've had in the past. And, you know, I know plenty of people in the sport now that, like, they freely talk about the fact, like, oh, I was a terrible person, you know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, because of traumas, because of mental health issues, because of substance abuse, and strongman was their way out. You know, that was their therapy, that was their healing process. And so I'm sure, yeah, they could be as nice people as they want now, but I'm sure there's something, you know, if you're not willing to give them that path and let them redeem themselves, like you can dig on anyone.
Absolutely.
You know,
and that's why we at this show we avoid drama that comes around and everybody gets on the mob train and goes after people, because I'm a firm believer that 99% of the time, right, there's something that's not justifiable. The mob's going to be wrong. You're going to end up on the wrong side of the argument. You know, let people live their lives, and if somebody's truly done something wrong, that's what we have a legal system for. Let the legal system work it out. I mean, of course, you know, I mean, if there is, you know, cases of somebody's, you know, life is in danger, of course, report it. But man, we don't need to like mob up and go after people because you know, because of rumors and shit. Like, everybody should have better things to do with their time and not have enough time actually on their hands to get so emotionally involved in shit that they know absolutely nothing beyond what was posted in a meme.
And you know what? Anyone that was born before 1996 and probably after 1970, I don't know. We all saw Chappelle's show. Everyone laughed at it. You want to start pointing fingers? We all laughed at it. He's funny.
It is funny. And he's still funny. He's still funny. Even though he's very controversial, I still laugh at him.
He's still hilarious. But if he was reliant on social media to grow his following,
oh yeah, nowadays,
no chance.
Yeah, no chance.
And that's the crazy part, is like, because there is no statute of limitations for social media stuff anymore. Like, it's crazy to realize, like,
exactly.
You can make the mistake of doing like an Ask Me Anything or an AMA on Reddit and forget that people can actually see your whole like history and everything, which is why if you ever do stuff on Reddit, just use burner accounts that you just
burner accounts all the way.
But that's the strange part, is to realize, like, for one, our legal system exists for a reason, but the statute of limitations exists for a reason as well. Like, there has to be a certain amount of time where you have to say, like, hey, this was like, even recently, if Shane Hunt, the power lifter, said some controversial anti-Semitic things and, like, I guess just got drunk and posted all day about it. And he did repost one interesting story that someone was like, y'all, this is sad. Like, you're watching a 26-year-old destroy his future. And he just reposted it with a poll that said yes or yes. And you're like, you think about it. Like, he did say some stuff that was, like, problematic or whatever, but he's also a 26-year-old. Like, if I had had a camera on me in my worst moments, thankfully I didn't get the confidence to be on camera until there, and then I started talking. The one day, that was like the first time I talked to a stranger randomly in video format, and I was like, this actually isn't that bad. But like, if all of us had had cameras following us around in our early 20s or mid 20s, like, you'd be in a rough spot if your employer could literally just Google your name and say, what was this person doing at 24 years old, and could pull up a video of you doing anything. I'm like, it's a crazy thing to see what it's going to turn into, though. It's a fun decade.
But even that, like the Shane Hunt thing, man, I was just like, I don't have time to care. I don't know him. I'm never gonna know him. And like, if he wants to be an idiot and destroy his career, let him. Like, don't give him why give him more exposure than, That's like what I always kind of like really blows my mind sometimes is, people get on like this hate train and you realize you're giving them exactly what they're craving, right?
Yeah.
Is the attention. You're just making this worse for everybody.
An interesting story about that is a few years ago, there was an issue in Brazil. There was a hashtag that went viral that I guess said in Portuguese or something. It said like, happiness is hitting a woman or something. And they were like, it's viral. And they were like, it's awful. Like, this is going viral. We have so many hateful people. And then if you did an analysis, it's all people talking about how it's a bad hashtag. And they were using it to be like, I can't believe this is going viral. And it's like, if you have 2 million people being like, this is a bad idea, you can't be like, it was viral. It's like, no, that's like, it's the same as years ago when people would be like, I can't believe Miley Cyrus is dancing scandalously like this. And then they all showed the same video. And you're like, we're all seeing it. Like, that's the interesting
You're helping us see it is what you're like, you don't want anybody to see it, but you're helping us see it.
People do that all the time. Like there were some Instagram accounts a while back that were like, would screenshot moments of sexism or racism and show it to everyone. And it's like, that's the only time I ever saw sexism on my timeline is these accounts that would be like, look at this awful sexist thing. And I'm like, no, I shouldn't, like, don't give these people a platform. Like, the best way to win an argument is just don't engage. Like, if someone says this rude comment, half the time it's like a actual child. Like, a while back when I did equip lifting, you'd get some rude comments, and 99% of the time there are people who just seem to be struggling and everything. People would be like, you should flame them. You should, like, say something. And I'm like, dude, it's an awkward 18-year-old who has to wear a mask in his high school for reasons he doesn't understand. Like, don't give this guy doesn't deserve to be screenshotted, blown up, or anything. Just water under the bridge. Just be like, it's a waste of time. Shane Hunt's kind of dumb, wildly drunk, and, like, just move on. Like, all of it, like, no one would have known about it if people weren't screenshotting.
If you stop paying attention to those people, they will go away.
Oh, they do.
Which is the best thing for everybody.
That's true.
But I mean, shock culture. That has been the foundation of media. I mean, in like music, you talk about music. Like when that WAP song came out, the horror and disgust that was on people's faces, and I'm like, did y'all forget what was on the radio like 10, 15 years ago, 5 years ago? I mean, that You Don't Even Know song that was real big for a while. Rick Ross did a remix in which he specifically talks about spiking a girl's drink and that she didn't know he did it. Like, this is nothing new talking about vulgar topics, but it was just something everyone jumped on the train of. It was popular to hate it, and it blew it up. I mean, gosh, the Whisper song, Lil Jon. I mean, these were iconic things from our youth that everyone suddenly forgot that happened. And it's like, through the window to the walls. We all know what the next two lines of that song are. But WAP is where we draw the line.
Yeah.
And I think that it has just become, I want to say it's a product of boredom. Maybe it was a product of the quarantine. Maybe it was a product of how the world has shifted. But it's, very, and that tying it back to building a following, you almost need to have something shock value-esque or ridiculous or something that people will get on board with, whether they love it or hate it. Like that's just about the only way that you will get attention. I mean, like, do you guys follow like the Two Buff? I don't know his actual name, but he's a
who was it? You cut out.
Too buff for this.
Too buff for this.
He does the comedy things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible lifter, crazy deadlifter. But if you actually go to his page, his deadlift videos, there's views, there's comments. He's got a good following. But the videos of people just doing crazy stuff in the gym, and then like the reaction videos to that, oh my God, hundreds of thousands of views.
Right.
And you go look at his lifting videos, and they can barely scratch 10,000 views sometimes.
Which is crazy. But I think a part of it, it's like, I think a combination of boredom, but also a culture of loneliness. We're kind of an atomized culture, and the only time we ever feel like part of a collective or something is literally just when we're part of a mob these days. There's very few times where there's like a positive everyone getting together and everything. It's usually like we're all united against this like one person who said something crazy and everything. And like when you say like the WAP, like WAP, like I literally wouldn't have heard that song if people weren't talking about it being controversial. Like no one actually like seemed to be a good fan of it or anything. And that's the weird part when people they're like, look at this terrible thing. And I'm like, you're the messenger right here. Like that's not the song. These things don't just exist in a vacuum. Like, and that's the same reason why we say there's always nuance with a situation, because people always like to act like it's black and white of like, here's the picture. Here's exactly. And I'm like, if you're looking through this tiny little lens right there, and they're like, look at this one thing, you're like, there's a broader picture at work and everything. Like at the end of the day, like we do this thing, but it really is like, it's an isolated, lonely culture. And we've just like, the only time we ever feel communal is like bandwagoning against something or for something. It's never like a normal thing.
I think it's like people wanting to justify their goodness too, right? I mean,
that's true.
Virtue signaling, I think, is a real thing, and people want validation for themselves, and I think a lot of times they jump on these bandwagons trying to seek that validation. They don't really know why they're on the bandwagon, right? They just know that it gives them temporary satisfaction of feeling like they're the good person, right? When the reality is that, like I said earlier, we all have like baggage and bullshit and like mistakes and, you know, bad choices we've made, and it gives you that temporary sense of feeling like you're one of the good ones, right? In reality, most of us have really fucked up in our lives, right?
Or temporary immunity from backlash. I mean, see how often it is like if you don't immediately vocalize against some hot button issue,
you're right.
You're on that side then.
Yeah,
you know,
back with the black square thing was going around that was improperly used to show solidarity for BLM. I remember seeing lots of comments on social media saying, we're watching you. If you don't put that on your social media, like we're going to do something, right? I mean, there's some kind of implied threat, like we're watching you. If you don't do this, then you're against us and all this, like exactly what you're saying. You know, and then again, that's another thing that turned out to be like, it was all wrong. Everybody was doing it wrong.
Very rarely do mobs get anything right and everything. It's always like tending to drown things out. And people they do like validation, because this is a culture where like your self-worth is defined by how many people care about you or following you. For so many people, it's very much this like, to the point where like you can be one of the strongest people in the world, but if you're not posting like regularly or like entertaining content, you'll have a smaller following. Like Victoria Long, incredibly strong. We're actually a small following compared to a lot of athletes and everything, and she's arguably the strongest woman in the world right now.
Yeah. And this is why we see a lot of great athletes don't get invites to like World's Strongest Man. I mean, we talked about it before. Was it 22 World's Strongest Man? I can't remember when. We were like they had some opening spots and they invited, and I'm sure he's a great guy and right, nothing against the dude, but he was from like Chile or something like that, or Brazil, I can't remember. They even had better athletes there than this guy. I mean, more accomplished. And we had athletes here like Ty Cotton and names are escaping me now.
Wesley Claiborne,
Wesley Claiborne, thank you. That's
all
the name.
Those guys.
Yeah, I mean, all those guys. And they're like, why aren't they getting the invites? Well, this guy was really popular where he was from, right? And these guys don't have very much following.
That's true.
Well, like Tyler Oberger. Like, the man, if he keeps the trajectory he's had, will be on that stage and like top 10 finisher stage. His pressing power is terrifying, but how many times they actually wound up at that level. You know, I know these promoters do take into consideration what kind of exposure you're going to bring them at the end of the day. You know,
Yep.
And it's a shame because he just posted a video, 400 plus pounds overhead, like it was an empty bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's a hard world out there, man.
Strong anymore.
It's not enough to be strong.
The reality is it's hard. It's hard to be an athlete. Because like you said, you can't just be an athlete. You have to be an entertainer. If you're really serious about this sport and you want to make a living off of it, that's the reality we face. And I think it's anything, any profession that you go into that may rely on marketing, man, you've got to have the entertainment thing nailed down for social media to grow that following. And, you know, I hope to see a lot of these guys that are very accomplished athletes, you know, get that figured out, because I know there's a lot of deserving people. I mean, again, Wes Claiborne, Ty Cotton, there's some others out there, you know, that these guys could just, you know, put the hurts to some of the best guys in the world and deserve, you know, their chance. But yeah, there's always that roadblock. But hey, guys, we like to try to actually keep this in an hour. We're an hour now.
No worries. Yeah.
We're way over, and we got way off topic there for a while. But that's good. We like to have organic conversation on the show,
for sure.
Regardless, and we like to be controversial at times because I think it helps stimulate conversation. And the only way that we grow and get better is through that communication and you know, being uncomfortable, I think. So it was great. It was a great conversation regardless, man. Make sure you eat all of your rotisserie chicken. Any final words you want to, any final words before we end the show?
I'm just saying that rotisserie chicken might be anabolic. I can't put a stamp on that one, but if y'all haven't gone around there, I know that there's a Walmart, Sam's Club, or Costco by almost everybody. Consider it.
Kroger too. Kroger's got them too.
Kroger. Oh, I forgot about Kroger.
HEB for us down here. It's the only thing in Texas. HEB and Buc-ee's.
There you go.
Oh.
It's great having you on.
Yeah, great having you on, man.
I appreciate y'all for having me.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow us on Instagram for updates. We'll catch you next time on World's Strongest Opinions.